I really believe that a lot of this stuff is sinister, deliberately. And now we're hearing this, all these buzzwords like gaslighting and all this kind of stuff. This is exactly what's going on.
He basically is saying that he doesn't buy it. That it's too much moaning, too much weakness. It's just not good enough. Like it's not legit mental health issues.
As time went on, juvenile mortality reached 100%. Every baby mice born died, and then reproduction eventually reached zero.
Yeah.
And at the same time, cannibalism increased despite the fact there was plenty of food. So 2 years after the start of the experiment, the last baby of the colony was born. And so by 1973, he had killed the last mouse.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Today I'm joined by Faisal. Assalamu alaikum, Faisal.
Salam.
Faisal, how do you, introduce yourself these days?
So I didn't know you were going to ask me that. No. Well, obviously, I'm your business partner. I'm Muslim CEO. I'm also the founder of No, and my lifelong mission is to help people to discover their purpose and find their potential.
So, 5 Pillars, Dilly Hussein, he's got the podcast, right? Blood
Yes.
Brothers, yeah. And he just yesterday or something, he put out an episode in which he was talking about men's mental health, or Muslim men's mental health. And he basically is saying that he doesn't buy it, that it's too much moaning, too much weakness. And, it's just not good enough. Like it's not legit mental health issues. It's just you're weak. Okay. So yeah, what do you think?
I think it's there's definitely an element of that. So I understand the whole snowflake generation. We're moaning about everything and we're not resilient and all that kind of stuff. Absolutely, that definitely has happened. That's a byproduct of ultimate luxury, ultimate convenience. We've optimized as far beyond possible, to the point where we don't even have to lift a finger, right? So that does cause immense weakness, because again, it's we become resilient through tough times and discomfort and all that kind of stuff. That's what causes growth. So there is an element of that, but for me, that's way too black and white. It completely avoids how complex the world has become, right? So look at it from one sense. We have all these challenges that didn't exist 20 years ago. Our phones are causing 50 distractions, 100 distractions a day. That's never happened before in history. And then not only that, we've got core components that result in that we need for a good well-being. We need to have nutrition, we need to have good sleep, all that kind of stuff. But our society doesn't optimize any of this stuff. So if you look at our sleep, we are sleeping later and later and later than ever. Now with phones, people are on TikTok scrolling and to 2-3 in the morning, right? So that's affecting our sleep. Nutrition is also, we're eating junk. And this is actually a really, really good. There's a really good book I've mentioned to you before. I'm reading, called Stolen Focus by a guy called Johan Hari. So he talks about this, and he says that we he goes that we in the 80s or 70s, 80s, we completely systemically changed the way we eat. So what happened before that, it was in the 50s and 60s, we had the housewife at home. She was cooking everything nutritious, everything she was making fresh, all that kind of stuff, right? And 70s, 80s went to more convenience, fructose, all that stuff, yeah? And as a result, people ballooned, right? We're actually 1.7 stones heavier now than we were in the 60s.
What's 1.7 stone?
That's like, is that 10 kg, 15 kg, something like that? I'm not sure.
Wow, okay, yeah.
But it's a lot, basically. No, it's about 20 kg, basically.
Oi, okay.
Yeah. Is it 12 kg in a stone? Yeah, anyway, I think it's that. I might be wrong. But anyway. So the point of it is that, he says that what happened was that they changed the system, and we all had to just get on with it, and in terms of the supermarkets, convenience, all that kind of stuff. And then they just gave us self-help books. Personal trainers went through the roof in the 80s, probiotic, all the Atkins diet, all these diets went crazy. So self-help industry went through the roof, right? Now we're living through that era of where they've done that to our minds. So technology has taken basically.
Is that how he positions it? Yeah.
Yeah, that's how he positioned it. He goes that they've changed the system from in terms of our distraction, technology, all that kind of stuff. But then what they're giving is self-help about productivity, time management, all this kind of stuff. You understand?
Yeah.
And he goes that so that's why it's not a fair. He goes that if you don't get your sleep, if you don't eat properly, and then if you don't have a sense of purpose, for example, it's the opposite, isn't it? You're going to go into nihilism. You're going to feel that everything's meaningless. That's going to get you deeper and deeper into like depression and eventually suicide. So the point of it is that we're being attacked on every single angle, and so let's say you're like, okay, you know what, I'm eating well, and I'm sleeping well, then you might get attacked on the spirituality side or on emotional side. Okay, now lockdown, we're not seeing our friends. We all need a social element. So the point of it is that we can't ignore this mental health crisis. It's absolutely massive, and it's not as simple as men should just get on with it. We absolutely need to learn how to be tougher and more resilient, and we need to understand that this is part of our deen, that it's been inbuilt into us, that the believer has two states, sabr and shukr, and we're never dissatisfied with what Allah gives to us. But so that definitely needs to be front and center a bit more, I think. But I don't think we can disregard it at all.
I guess it's like the whole climate change, ecological disaster kind of thing, where, as far as I understand, okay, I guess it's a complicated topic, but as far as I understand, a lot of the blame is on the big movers and shakers, right? So like manufacturers and factories and corporations, and like they're the ones that ultimately can make a big change on that side of things. But a lot of the responsibility in the public sphere is put on the individual, right? Like, stop using plastic, stop this, stop that, reuse your coffee cup and all that, right? When I actually kind of go out my way quite a bit to try and not be wasteful and all that stuff, right? Not use plastics and everything. But I don't know if I'm moving the needle much at all, right? I'm just doing whatever, so Yom Qiyam I can say, I did this and that. And to be honest, because I'm just obsessed with not wasting and stuff, right? But ultimately, like, what I understand is I'm not moving the needle. It's them. They're like the big manufacturers or whatever. They could move the needle like way more than me, absolutely. Right? So the 100%. Same thing could be like on this, right? Where it's like, you're going nuts. That's not politically correct, is it? You're going nuts, but it's not. And then it's like, oh, well, don't go nuts. You got these books, you got this, you got blah, 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 right? Or on the worst end, it's like, why are you going nuts? You've got Uber Eats. You can call food whenever you want. You can do, right? Obviously, that's not going to fix it. But the reality is that we're going nuts because of bigger things at play, perhaps, right?
I mean, what I would say genuinely is that, I mean, this might go down the wrong route and stuff, but I really believe that a lot of this stuff is sinister, deliberately. And now we're hearing this all these buzzwords like gaslighting and all this kind of stuff. This is exactly what's going on. Gaslighting, the definition of it is when you convincing someone else that they're going insane when they're actually completely sane.
Question their own.
Questioning their sanity and so exactly. And so, how can you be feeling like this? We've never been so lucky. We've never had as much technology as today. We've never had as much convenience as today. But that's part of what's
psyops.
It literally is psyops.
Actually, interestingly, Dilly was saying that he believes that this is a part of an agenda. Okay, like kind of the same way, but like what you're saying, but not what you're saying. So he's saying that men have been convinced that they are vulnerable. It's not that they're just being weak or they're not resilient enough. They need to toughen up. It's that they're ill. Okay, he said that. He's saying that is like what's the
validation
word? Emasculating men, right? It's like instead of them, get going when the going gets tough, kind of thing. They give up, right? And they have something to blame it on, which is, it must be depression, it must be anxiety, it must be this, So he's saying it is an agenda, like you're saying, but taking it that other direction, kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, look, just expanding on that point a little bit. we are living in a society where girl power has never been as strong as it is now, right? So everywhere you go, it's front and center. Even like when you look at, like, I also sometimes when you look at Netflix, it's actually a very good window into our world, right? And so you look at, for example, the last 5 to 10 years, we've now seen all of the big Hollywood films of back in the day, big remakes of them. Ocean's 11 became Ocean's 8, which is all female cast. Ghostbusters had an all female cast. All these things.
Men in Black, I think, had a woman.
Yeah. Again, it's when something is like really in front of your face.
Yes. Star Wars.
Yeah, exactly. And so what people then people have a when something is extreme, people have an extreme response. Right. You either go down the whole red pill route, oh no, we need to fight back, or people escape, then going their own way type thing, or they become like mentally ill and
you go into yourself, kind of
into yourself and stuff. Yeah, exactly, and stuff. Whereas again, remember, Islam is the middle path. Our whole thing is balance. We understand that the world that we're living in is a temporary world. We understand that Shaitan is the puppet master here. He's controlling. He's out behind the wheel and controlling all this stuff, right? So we need to understand that. Look, we've got the book. We've got the Quran. That's our guide. That is our compass in this dark age, right? It's going to lead the way. We just need to hold on to it. That's the key. It really, really is. Let me get one more thing I want to say about that is that when when we look at the prophets, we call them the prophet, the beloved, and all the prophets actually, they are our examples that we need to try and become like.
Yeah.
But and they're Allah's beloved because they're the closest to Him, right? In terms of the people who have been self-actualized, they've gone through. But what stands them apart more than anyone is that they have gone through the toughest times, right? The Prophet was an orphan. He, had all these difficulties, rejection, all sorts, right? But again, that was all necessary part of his development for him to become who he became. And that's the thing. I think that we need a paradigm shift in terms of how we view a lot of this stuff that happens to us. Even when you look at animals, I give this example. Even animals are beloved because the way I define someone who's beloved to Allah is someone who is following their purpose. And animals in nature are still functioning in the way that Allah programmed them. But if you look at what their purpose actually is, their purpose is nothing more but to survive. Their survival of themselves and their offspring is their only purpose in life.
And they're kind of in the flow state doing that.
And then the flow state, so they're doing it. They're not heedless. Humans are actually heedless in the sense that they'll just do things without thinking about it and this and that. Whereas animals all the time are aware. But what their purpose, which is survival, that drives their resilience. And what changes, or the only thing that's different, is how they do it. Differs from animal to animal. So, for example, you have elephants. What they do is that they go to the elders. Elephants will lead the way. So that in times of resilience, I did this course on biomimicry, basically, where I learned a lot of this stuff. Then you have fire ants. That what they do is that they collaborate. They form alliances, basically. Okay, you guys do this, and we'll get out of this crisis. You have gazelles. They work together with other gazelles and stuff. You have crustaceans which go inward. They hibernate and they hide away.
Yeah.
So it's basically, again, everyone is different. Right? All the species are different, but they all are all about survival, and they survive in a different way, basically. It's quite interesting.
Wow. In times of crisis, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I think this is what we need to understand. This is why if we understood ourselves more, we can understand. Okay, you know what? There's no one solution to be able to handle all this stuff. Some people, when the going gets tough, their approach has to be, okay, you know what, I need to come out fighting, I need to protect my family and from all this fitna that's going on. Some people, their approach actually needs to be, you know what, we need to do hijrah, we need to withdraw from this. And that there's no right or wrong answer. The answer is to do what is right, to get you to basically the more than one way to skin a cat. And whatever approach you take, might be because of how you're made up as an individual.
I see you. Yeah. I was wondering, about this whole when Didi Hussein was saying about it's all a bit. He doesn't buy into the fact that it's legitimate mental health issues that men are facing, right? I was saying, well, it's kind of proven, right, in many studies. Like, for example, the highest suicide rate is always amongst men rather than women. Although women attempt it more than men, but men carry it out more. But then I start thinking, well, that's like a US statistic, right? I wonder if this crisis, this crisis of men, mental health crisis amongst men, is it an American thing, a Western thing, or is it a worldwide thing? It'd be interesting to know that, really.
Yeah. I mean, look, a lot of this stuff, I think, first of all, it's definitely a Western thing. That is quite clear. But having said that, I know that there's a crisis in Japan, for example, with and a lot of that stuff is a potential future population crisis. The whole herbivore thing, where people are growing up, men are growing up with no real desire, they're just gaming, they're just no desire to actually become men in that sense, and so they live at home until they're 40, 50, and they'll just watch porn and all this kind of stuff, right? So what happens is that the women then are not catered for, so then they go off and do their own thing, and so they go that, and they're not even interested in getting married and stuff.
Completely
so what
dysfunctional.
Happens they're completely dysfunctional as a society. That's why they're saying that Japan by 2050, they're saying that their population could halve.
2050, okay, that's in 2050, like 30 years.
Which is 30 years, exactly, which is crazy, right?
Let me see something, Japan fertility rate. Because it must be real. 1.36. Well, I'll tell you something. Ukraine is 1.23, even lower.
Okay, interesting.
Wow.
Okay.
1.36. So what does that mean? It means 2 women will have 2.6. Yeah, 2 women on average won't even have 3 kids. Okay.
Yeah. But if you think about what it was here, 2.4 children or whatever. So
in the UK, it's 2.4 now.
No, I don't know if it was that was when I was growing up.
Yeah, the UK was. I remember it generally was a bit stronger than the other Western European countries in fertility rate. Like Spain is like long gone and all of that. I'm seeing actually now. This is nuts. Yeah, maybe I don't know if you know this. So Japan is 1.36. Yeah, this is fertility rate, which means how many children does the average woman of child. What's the word?
Bearing age
have. So 1.36 in Japan. South Korea.
Initially, I thought it was child rearing, but I thought rearing's animals, isn't it?
South Korea is 0.9.
Whoa, okay, interesting.
That means on average, the average woman not even having 1 child.
Yeah, but this is another really fascinating book that you should read. I'm literally about 2/3 of the way through it now. It's called The Values Compass.
Okay.
Right? So what this lady has done, this lady who wrote it, she's a Sikh woman. She has traveled to about 130 countries or something like that. Yeah. And what she's done, she's in all my travels, she's got it's like a travel log. But what she says is that every single country has got a value that stands out more than anything, right? And so you could actually, so it's almost like, it's not a stereotype, but she's almost like so basically, like, for example, with America, she says, look, the value that stands out more than anything is entrepreneurship, for example. For Turkey, it was hospitality. Yeah, she says that in Turkey, the hospitality, it's just above anything that I've ever experienced, right? But like basically, they will. She tells an example where I actually crashed my car in Turkey, and someone came to me and they said, oh, you know what? Here's my keys. You go to the garage. You're a woman. You're on your own and stuff. You go to the garage. Take my car. I'll get your car fixed. I am a complete stranger.
Wow.
And so she was actually blown away by that stuff.
Can't have been in Istanbul.
Probably not. But again, for me, first of all, the book's really interesting because you can just start to. It's like almost like you're traveling the world whilst just reading.
Yes.
Oh wow, Togolese people like this. And but what she said about South Korea, I remember it was basically they have the most plastic surgeons per capital square in the world, right? Because everything in South Korea is about looks. There's actually a superficiality. She didn't talk negatively about any country per se, but there's a expectation there about standards and looks and how something looks is really they don't really care about depth and anything like that. It's very and so
interesting.
I don't know. Yeah, so it's just interesting, like looking at different countries and what they're valuing, because this is stuff is linked to culture, isn't it?
Yes.
And what someone espouses.
Do you know what Algeria was?
No, I don't.
I think it must have been hatred of Israel.
I'm sure it's loyalty or something, but I can't remember. I'll remember. I'll look at it and I'll let you know.
Did you get to Pakistan?
Pakistan, it was something to. I did. Again, forgotten what it was.
Okay.
But I think it was more to do. I think it was something to do with innovation or something like that, which I'm not sure if that's true or not.
Yeah. Interesting.
So
yeah, bro.
One point I just want to actually say was, you're talking about South Korea and Japan. So but it's interesting. Just the neighbors, China. I don't know, again, if they're looking at the West and then doing the opposite, or if they're looking at their neighbors and doing the opposite. Because obviously, you know that the laws that they've passed in the last few months or so, where they're limiting gaming, for example. They're saying, okay, so this has impacted Japan in such a way, 3 hours of gaming capped per week.
Yeah.
And they cut it off from the back end. If you're doing more than over 3 hours, they cut it off.
Sick.
And then the second thing that they've got is you cannot, an effeminate man cannot be on national TV.
Oh, yeah, I remember that, yeah.
Yeah, so again, they are trying to protect their men.
This is a survival issue now for them, isn't it?
It really is.
Like, literally, South Korea, less than one child per woman, that's survival issue now. Like, it's actually, I'm pretty sure it's impossible for them now to not end up with 0 people.
Yeah.
It's mathematically impossible, I believe,
Yeah.
So China has to survive, and so they got to do what they got to do.
Did you hear about that? I'm sure I must have told you about it. That Universe 25 experiment.
Universe 25.
Yeah, have you heard about that?
It rings a bell.
About rats.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I remember.
Yeah. So it's interesting because when you look at that experiment, that you could see that now really, really playing out. Let me
share it for us.
Let me tell you what. So basically, what happened was that there's an American scientist, John Calhoun, right? So he created an ideal world where like lots of mice would live and reproduce, right? And so what he did was, and basically what he created in this, created this world for mice. And in one section, he had what was called the paradise of mice, which is like a specially designed space where the mice had abundance of food and water, large living space, etc. So at the start, what he did was he placed 4 pairs of mice, and then they started to reproduce, right? And that resulted in the population growing rapidly. So, however, after 315 days, their reproduction began to decrease significantly, right? And when the number of rodents reached 600, basically a hierarchy started to form, and then so-called wretches began to appear, right? Wretches were just like more weaker, effeminate type, right, of rodents, right? And so then what happened was that the larger rodents began to attack the group, with the result that many males began to collapse psychologically, right? So as a result, the females did not protect themselves, and in turn became aggressive towards their young, right? And so as time went on, the females showed more and more aggressive behavior, isolation elements, and then lack of reproductive mood, basically. And so that ended up resulting in a low birth rate and then an increase in mortality in younger mice.
Yeah.
So then what happened after that, right? This is, a new class of male rodents appeared, which were called the beautiful mice. And they refused to mate with the females, and then refused to fight for their space either, right? Or basically these guys were completely lazy. They were just, all they cared about food and sleep. So, and then I got to a point where the beautiful males and the isolated females, they made up the majority of the population, right? And so, and this basically triggered what he called the death phase, right? The first death and the second death, right? The first death, he says that was characterized by the loss of purpose in the life beyond mere existence, they had no desire to mate after that, and then or raise young or establish a role within society because they're like, what's the point of all this, right? And then as time went on, juvenile mortality reached 100%. So every mice, baby mice born died, and then reproduction eventually reached zero.
Yeah.
And then, I don't know. They said that among the endangered mice, homosexuality was observed, and at the same time, cannibalism increased, despite the fact there was plenty of food. So 2 years after the start of the experiment, the last baby of the colony was born, and so by 1973, he had killed the last mouse in the universe 25. Right. So what was really freaky about all this, right, is that he repeated the same experiment 25 more times, and each time the result is exactly the same.
Wow.
Yeah. And so what this model is becoming quite famous again today because it's used to interpret like social collapse, and it's like his research is seen as a focal point for like sociology and things like that. So for me, it's really like a really
wait. So what was the key kind of input that caused that collapse? Was it the fact that they had all the comforts, or what was it?
He gets that the what triggered that, it was just that loss of purpose, that like we're beyond just because again a mouse in the wild has to survive.
Yes.
Whereas here they had all the food. All they had to do was just sleep all day or meat all day. That's all they had to do. So that loss of purpose.
Yeah.
Basically
no effort was needed to be exerted.
No effort, and then basically they ended up becoming so lazy that when it's on tap, they didn't want it anymore.
Yeah. And even it's like a superhero movie where it starts and they're already a superhero and there's no villain, and it's like, well, that's boring, right? That's not a story. Every story, we know it needs that challenge, that villain, that
100%.
That work, that effort.
Yeah, I remember listening to talk, and how the talk started was this: it says, imagine you're at this party. This is the best party you've ever been to, right? So the best food, everyone's like really, really good looking, amazing furniture, amazing chandelier, like amazing clothes, everything. And you're there for ages. You're there for ages and ages, and you're enjoying it. And it's not clear why you're there. It's not clear why you're at this party or whose party it is, but you're just there and you're enjoying it. After a while, you'll start questioning, and you ask people, "Oh, why are we here?" Nobody's telling you an answer until what for some people, they'll get bored after 2 hours. Some people might be 4 hours, but at some point, you're questioning it. Okay, what is the point of this party? Why? And
you start to get like fidgety and like, what the hell?
Fidgety, and so like, what the hell? Why? There's only so much you can party and dance and all that kind of stuff, right? So, and that's basically, it's a very good analogy for our life here, isn't it? Because, if you don't ask yourself, what you're saying is that, look, our fitra is curious. It always wants to know. It always wants to know. And so, if what happens is that people, when they don't know the answers to things, instead of seeking it out, what's happening today is, we're going towards porn or drugs or alcohol or this, or just to survival, existence,
distraction,
distraction, as opposed to let's figure this stuff out, because once you figure it out, actually now it gives meaning to everything.
Yes.
Now everything makes sense and everything has meaning, and it's a game changer. So that's why it really is the most important thing you can actually do to trigger things off if you're stuck or in a chaos somewhere.
That's all for now, kids.